this is your feature film debut, transition from theatre to film. What was perhaps the biggest or most unexpected challenge for you?
I think the time and order of shooting is the big difference between theatre and film. And, I've actually been writing lots of films over the last few years, but as a director, this was my first experience of a long form piece. And the trickiest thing really is to have to shoot bits from the end before you shoot the bits from the beginning, because often I think I love to be spontaneous, and I think the actors bring so much possibility of variety with their performances that you often find that when you're shooting a scene, something happens in that scene that you didn't expect, and the writer in you wants to think, oh, well, does that mean I should change this? And then that might have this effect and this effect. Yeah. And of course, you've already shot the next scene, so you can't use that. And so that was a challenge, but it's also a joy because you have to keep the whole thing in your head. But I loved it. I mean, I've genuinely never been happier than I was on that cliff in that most beautiful part of this country with some of our most talented actors shooting this film. That was my absolute dream.
Yeah. And Gemma, what was the appeal to you in terms of, was it the story? It's such a beautiful story.
Yeah, it was the story overall. I read the script not as an actress, but as a producer that was looking for a material. And so it was the story that just completely took me by surprise, transported me, took my breath away actually, and made me cry when I read the script, which is a rare thing for me, gosh, you read so many scripts that just don't do anything to you emotionally, but this really got me. And I also love magic realism, and I think, we don't see enough of it in cinemas these days. It's something that's always attracted me in literature and art and everything. So, and then, Alice was written older in the original script, so I just didn't imagine myself playing her at all. And it was Jess that suggested sort of tweaking the script so that I could play her. And then once that was on the table, I was, it was an amazing opportunity, really happy.
Yeah, and both of you are really passionate about, female filmmakers and female-led stories. You've got your production company, Gemma, and I know, Jessica, you also directed that short film, Leading Lady Parts. Was it brilliant to have an opportunity to bring this story then to the screen, which is so female-centred?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I write about women because I find them really interesting, and I think quite often their stories haven't been told in the same sort of bright colours and in the same detail as the sort of canon of very male-focused films that we've had for a very long time. And also knowing actors like Gemma and Gugu so well, I really love seeing people that I care about being stretched and playing parts that really challenge them, and not always playing the sort of supporting pretty love interest. I think there's a real place for those stories, and I will continue to write them. I'm as interested in, I love writing stories for women. I also love writing interesting male characters, but I do think that at the moment particularly it's so important that we see on our screens the sort of diversity which we want from our audiences, and whether that's to do with the representation of race on screen or age or gender. I just think the more stories we hear from different voices, the better.
Yeah. And what about you, Gemma?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my whole production company is about that. And seeing her, and one of the things that I loved about this was Alice is not your typical kind of likable leading lady. She is who she is. She doesn't apologize for it. There's a reason why she is the way she is that we learn about. But that's another thing that I think is important, is that the stories we put out there and the characters that are the female characters that we see on our screens are not necessarily always perfect. And that's life, and people aren't perfect. So I love that. Also, I think I'm really proud that on Summerland we had we really pushed for a 50-50 gender equal crew, and that made a huge difference to the experience of making a film. For me, it was the first time I'd been involved in a feature where there were so many women on set, and it was lovely. It was just a very easy, collaborative. All of the departments mixed together. There was no sort of boys club, girls club. It was brilliant, and I hope that there's more and more women on film sets going forward, because it really made a difference to the environment of making the film.
No, totally agree. Well, thank you very much. That's all we've got time for. It was a wonderful movie, and yeah, I know personally I appreciate seeing that sort of story, and yeah, the 50-50 female representation. But thank you very much.